Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle something we do all the time, describing people. We're going to arm you with the English words to do it really well, and maybe even more importantly, to do it politely. So, let's jump right in. Have you ever had that moment you're trying to point someone out to a friend and your mind just goes totally blank? You can see them perfectly in your head, but the right words just won't come out. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's a super common problem, and guess what? We're going to fix it right now. Okay, so take a look at these two people, Bettina on the left and Tom on the right. What's the first thing you notice? What's the most obvious difference between them? You probably have some ideas already, but trust me, by the end of this, you'll know exactly the right words to use for them, and for anyone really. All right, let's build our vocabulary from the ground up. We're going to start with the absolute fundamentals, the first things you usually notice about someone, their height and their weight. So, going back to our examples. For Bettina, we can say she's very tall. And for Tom, we'd say he's quite short. See? It's simple, it's direct. And notice those little words like very and quite. They're great for adding just a little bit more detail to your description. But, not everyone is super tall or super short. So what about all the people in the middle? Well, the perfect phrase for that is of medium height. You could say something like, my friend is of medium height. Easy, right? Okay, now let's move on to weight. Look at Agata here. A really good word to describe her is slim. For instance, Agata is really slim. But, and this is important, there's a little bit of a catch with this word that we really need to dig into. So here's the deal. The key difference is between using the word slim and the word thin. Slim is almost always seen as a positive thing, a compliment. Thin, on the other hand, well, it can sometimes sound a bit negative, like you're suggesting someone is underweight or maybe even sick. The example here says it all. I was very thin when I was in hospital. See the difference? Now, on the other end of the scale, we have the word overweight. It basically just means weighing too much. This is a much more, clinical and polite term. You can almost think of it as the word a doctor would use. It's way more neutral than some other words you could choose. Awesome. We've got the basics down. Now, let's get to the fun part, the details that really make a description come to life. We're talking about face, hair, and age. First up, let's talk about coloring. On one side, we have Suri, who has dark hair and dark skin. And on the other, there's Polly, who has fair hair and fair skin. Now, that word fair, it's a fantastic word for describing a lighter complexion or skin tone. And for hair, of course, you could also just say blonde. But it's not just about color, right? There's also length and style and, facial hair. So for example, Ben here has a beard and long hair. Meanwhile, Luca has a mustache and short hair. See how easy it is to just stack these details together? It builds a much clearer picture in your mind. Okay, what about just general appearance? How attractive someone is? Well, the words we use here can often depend on gender. For women, it's very common to use words like beautiful or pretty. For men, a really great all-purpose word is good-looking, though honestly, you can use good-looking for anyone. These are fantastic words to have in your back pocket. And last but not least for this section, let's quickly cover age. This little timeline makes it super clear. At 14, you're young. Somewhere around 56, you'd be called middle-aged. And at 97, well, that's old. Now, these are just general buckets, of course, but they're super helpful for giving someone a quick idea of a person's age. Okay, listen up, because this next part might just be the most important bit of all. We've learned a bunch of words, but now we have to talk about how to use them carefully. This is all about getting your description right and being polite at the same time. So here is the golden rule, straight from our source. It's almost always better not to say directly to someone you are fat or you are old. These words can come across as really blunt or impolite, which means we need to have some better alternatives ready to go. And this little chart here lays it out perfectly. So instead of old, try using elderly. It's just a bit more respectful. Like we talked about before, slim is usually a nicer choice than thin, and overweight is a much more neutral word than fat. It's all about picking the right word for the right situation. Okay, so theory is one thing, but putting it into practice is what really matters. So how does all this stuff actually sound when you're just, having a normal conversation? Well, this is the classic situation, right? Your friend asks, hey, what does Gemma look like? This is it. This is your moment to shine and use all those great words we've just gone over. And here is a perfect natural-sounding answer. She's tall and dark. She's very pretty. I mean, look at that. In just a few short words, you've covered her height, her coloring, and her overall look. It's quick, it's effective, and it paints a really clear picture in your friend's mind. Now, sometimes you might need to get a little more specific. This shows you exactly how. For height, you can ask, how tall is Bettina? And the answer would be a specific measurement, like she's 1.85 meters tall. For weight, the direct question is, how much do you weigh? And you'd get an answer like, I weigh 62 kilos. But just a little heads up here, asking someone directly about their weight can be a pretty sensitive subject, so you definitely want to be careful with that one. Wow, we have covered a ton of stuff, haven't we? From the very basics of height and weight all the way to those super important little details about being polite. So now it's time for you to take all this and really make it your own. So here's your homework, your challenge. I want you to think of 3 people that you know. Maybe hit pause in a second and actually try to describe them using all these words we've talked about. Don't just use 1 or 2 words, try to combine them. Talk about their height, their hair, their overall look. Can you put it all together to paint a full picture? Because at the end of the day, the real magic isn't just knowing the words. It's using them so that someone else can see exactly who you're talking about. Thanks so much for tuning in.